which talks about the dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. So, which means how to live in this world and how to leave this world for a better world. So, this talks about both the aspects. So, from
yes, so you can join
Nikhil
the
Prabhu, can you
group.
mute yourself? So, Mahabharat talks about all the four aspects of life. So, in that, there is a section called as Bhishma Parva. In the Bhishma Parva, the 700 shlokas are the direct words of Lord Krishna, which gives the essence of all the Upanishads and the culmination of the knowledge, which is directly spoken by Lord Krishna himself. And if you see the geographical position of this war, Kurukshetra, so then it actually comes within the Bharatavarsha, Bharatakanda, that is in India, in the place Kurukshetra. So it's in the northern India. So in the Kurukshetra, this has happened. When did it happen? It happened 5,000 years ago. So according to the modern astronomical calculations, the data which has been mentioned in the text of Mahabharata and is being validated by the scientists from NASA, the astrological parameters which are mentioned in the Mahabharata and according to the astrological calculations made by the NASA coincides very close with a minor error. So, which actually tells us that this is no longer a mythology, rather it is a history. When we talk about mythology, mythology refers to a text where it may be a fictional one. But whereas when we talk about the history, it means it has happened and we are reading the past what it went. And if you see the Kurukshetra and the war, it not only just represents the historical context and the spiritual context and the spiritual message which has been embedded in this text, but also it talks about the real life situations of our life. So if you see who has assembled in the place of Kurukshetra, there are two parties. One, Kauravas, and the other are Pandavas. So in the dynasty of Kuru, because of the greed for occupying the throne, the son of Dhritarashtra, Duryodhana, and all his accompaniments came on one side and formed 11 Akshauhinis army, which is a massive army according to the modern calculations. And on the other side, the younger brother of Dhritarashtra, that is Pandu, and his sons called as Pandavas formed on the other side along with their allies. So दोनों अगर देखेंगे एक जगह पे 11 अक्षौहिणी से दूसरे जगह पे 7 अक्षौहिणी से. So one party represents the divine, or they are on the righteous part, that is called as dharma. On the other, if you see, they represent the adharma, or the wrongdoers, are also called as a demonic path. So what are the characteristics of the divine, are those who are on the path of dharma? One, they are always driven by service attitude. They see what actually would be of the interest for the larger section of the people. बहुत सारे लोगों की भलाई के लिए क्या होगा वो सोचते हैं. Whereas the demonic, that is the adharmic, their characteristic is they are majorly driven by the sense of exploitation. So if you see the first chapter, Duryodhana, when he was describing his own armies, he mentions that on my side I have the great commander Bhishma and Drona and Ashwathama and like that so on. He mentions many names. And in the end, after mentioning all the names, he says, all of them are ready to lay their lives for my sake. So this clearly establishes the attitude of Duryodhana, that he is ready and he is ready to actually gather all the armies to fight for his sake. Not only gather the armies, but also he is ready to lay down their lives to fulfill his own mission, that is to occupy the throne of Hastinapur. So that is how they are driven by exploitation. And what is the second symptom of divine, that is those who are in the path of dharma? That is their obedience to the Lord. Whereas the adharmic, they are not obedient, rather they are unruly. मतलब सुनने वाले लोग नहीं है वो. जब दुर्योधन और अर्जुना युद्ध के पहले कृष्ण के पास जाते हैं द्वारका में, because now both the sides are accumulating their armies on their side. उस समय में अर्जुन और दुर्योधना जो दोनों जाते हैं. First, Duryodhana goes into the palace and he sits near the head of Krishna. And Arjuna sits near the feet of Krishna. At that point of time, Krishna was taking rest. After some time, when Krishna awoke, उन्होंने देखा अर्जुन इधर पैर के पास है, तो पहले अर्जुन को देखा. हे प्रिय अर्जुन, आप इधर आ गए हैं, आपके लिए मैं क्या सेवा कर सकता हूँ? Immediately, Duryodhana became insecure and he got up and he introduced himself, saying, "Oh, Krishna, I came first to seek charity from you. So I deserve the first rights." Then Krishna knows the evil intentions of Duryodhana and all his evil plans, how he wanted to kill the Pandavas in various ways. So Krishna, he told, see Duryodhan, according to the Shastras, the younger ones get the first preference. So Arjuna is the younger one, so let me ask him what he was. However, before he asks, I would like to clarify that if at all if we have to fight in the war, then I would be on one side and my Narayani Sena will be on the other side. And I will not lift any weapon, but my Narayani Sena will fight with all their might. Now Arjuna, you choose. So immediately Arjuna, without a second thought, he chose Krishna. And Duryodhana internally became so happy and he took the Narayani Sena and he came to Shakuni. And happily he said, "Cho Shakuni Mama, आज मैं नारायणी सेना पूरा मैं अपने तरफ ले लिया है और कृष्ण उनके तरफ." Shakuni laughed by seeing the happiness of Duryodhana and he said, "You are underestimating Krishna." And then the war begins in few days. So Arjuna chose Krishna even though he said he will not even lift the weapon. but Arjuna is not looking after the resources what a person offers. इनसे मुझे क्या मिलता है वो नहीं देख रहे थे, because he wants Krishna, who is the supreme Lord, to be on his side. If Krishna is on my side, what else do I need more? Even if he doesn't lift the weapon, still that is okay. If Lord is on my side, everything is there. So he has chosen to be obedient to the Lord. And the third aspect is the welfare for others. Whereas in the adharma, it is contrasted with the me first mentality. So if you say whether Duryodhana would give nice goodies to the public, yes, he may do. Just like the modern politicians, how they actually give freebies before they been elected, like that Duryodhana could also do and make them happy by giving them freebies. Lekin, jo what is good for the citizens is being actually thought. The main reason between the war between the Pandavas and Kauravas is to establish dharma. Pandavas were satisfied with only 5 villages. But Duryodhana was so adamant that he did not even want to give the land which where a small drop of pin's head would occupy, उतना भी मैं जगह नहीं दूंगा करके उन्होंने बताया. So Pandava's main reason to fight in the war is to establish dharma, and when dharma is established, citizens would naturally be following the dharma, and when they follow dharma, they will be happy. So that is the main contention of the Pandavas and Krishna. So this is the background of the war. Similarly, this kind of divine and demonic tendencies, what we actually segregated as 3 versus 3 points or traits, characteristics, exist within our hearts also. And both of them exist. According to the situation and according to the person, we manifest these qualities to some degree or the other. So now when we see the war, we can also see how we give priorities according to our choices. Whether do I actually give preferences to follow dharma, or do I make choices which would fulfill the criteria of adharma? And what does Bhagwad Gita talk about? As we were discussing, it talks about the crisis management. It is actually a 5,000-year-old text. In one sense, if you see, a first-class student, after he completes his first class, he would not be so much interested to read the first-class textbooks again in the second class. मतलब 1 साल के बाद जो 1 साल का पुराना वाला जो टेक्स्ट बुक है वो ऑब्सोल्यूट हो जाता है. But here, this is 5,000 years old text. And one may actually question, how does this become relevant in the modern lives where we are living? If you see the GPS, so what does GPS do? If we are in a particular location like Bandra and we want to go to Kharghar, then how do we actually go? First, we actually select the destination according to our choice, and then we actually ask the GPS navigation system to lead us the way. And similarly, Bhagwad Gita is like the GPS. Whereas in the GPS, we choose the destination and GPS gives us the trajectory to reach the destination. But whereas the Bhagavad Gita, which is also a navigation system of our life, where it dictates what is the destination, and also it gives us the trajectory, the journey, how we can actually reach the destination. कैसे उधर पहुंचना है करके भी बता देता है. So the Gita defines the journey from the temporary things to the permanent things. क्यों टेम्पररी टू परमानेंट? बिकॉज टेम्पररी चीजों से जब हम फिक्स हो जाते हैं, उससे हैप्पीनेस लिमिटेड होता है, उसका शेल्फ लाइफ होता है. बट वेर एज परमानेंट चीजों से अगर हम हैप्पीनेस लेना सीखते हैं, सो देन वी कैन एक्चुअली बी हैप्पी फॉर लॉन्गर ड्यूरेशंस. So that is how Gita is actually encouraging us to be happy for a long time. Now, one may question, essentially, what does Gita talk about? Gita talks about the 5 topics. कोई भी अगर हमको पूछेंगे गीता क्या बात करती है, what is the content, what is the index of the Gita, they should know that Gita talks about the 5 subjects. The first one, that is Ishvara, called as the Supreme Lord. The second is Jiva, the living entity. The third is Kala, which is called as a time factor. And the fourth is Karma, the activities which we perform and the destiny what we actually accrue because of performing the activities. And the last one is the Prakriti, that is called as the material creation. These are the 5 topics which Gita talks about. And now, connecting to this, there are many themes, many topics which are being discussed. In simple, if you want to remember this, remember a triangle. And on the top of the triangle, the top vertex, you keep the Ishvara. And the bottom one, on the other vertex, you keep the Jiva. And the other one, you have the Prakriti, that is material nature. The Supreme Lord, the living entity, that is we, all of us, and the material nature. The interactions between the Ishvara, that is the Supreme Lord, and all of us, that is called as yoga. Yoga means it is the interaction between 2 people. So that is how it is yoga. And the interactions between the Lord and the material nature is called as Kala, the time factor. And the interactions between the living entities and the material nature, that is called as the Karma, the activities and the destiny and many other things. So we will try to understand this whole chapter with a beautiful acronym called as doubt. After 13 years of exile, and they are actually prepared to make a war, and every one of them have arrived on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, and now Dhritarashtra is actually saying, Mamaka Pandavaschaiva Kim Kurvata Sanjaya. It means Mamaka, my sons, and Pandavas both have actually assembled there. Now, what are they doing? So, according to the ideal rules of a king, he should consider all his citizens to be as good as his son. Whereas the opening statement of the first verse of Bhagwad Gita talks about that Mamaka and Pandavaschaiva. So there is already a demarcation, biased view of Dhritarashtra. पहले वो सेपरेट कर रहे, मेरा पुत्र अलग है और पांडवों का पुत्र अलग है करके. So we will see the mindset of Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana. The second O stands for the ominous results. मतलब ominous मतलब omens जो होते हैं ना, तो बिल्ली अगर हमारा रास्ते काट दिया तो अशुभ है करके बोलते हैं. तो ऐसे सारे चीज को ओमेंस बोलते हैं. एंड ऐसे शुभ ओमेंस भी है, शुभ संकेत भी है और अशुभ संकेत भी होते हैं. एंड द U stands for the uncertainty. B stands for the bewilderment. Bewilderment मतलब confusion. T stands for the turning point. So the first, that is the illusion of I and mine. So the Dhritarashtra mindset is being actually shown in one sentence. That is I and mine. Simple. These three words. As we discussed, the first verse itself actually talks about I, that is my sons and mine. Why does he actually raise that concern? Because Kurukshetra is a very sacred place. Earlier, Lord Parshuram has actually performed tapasya over there. After that, many of the sages performed tapasya in that divine place. Any place where you go, and based on the activity of the place, there are good amount of vibrations. हम देखते हैं ना, कभी कभी हम मंदिर आते हैं, तो जैसे मंदिर के अंदर आ गए, बहुत शांत है, बहुत शांति की अनुभूति मिली. How do we get that? Because that place carries those vibrations. Because of that vibrations, we actually feel in that way. एक बार ट्राई करके देखिए, कोई एक नाइट क्लब हो गया या पब हो गया, उधर जाके ऐसा पीस वाला एनवायरनमेंट आ सकता है क्या करके? नो, बिकॉज उधर वैसे कार्य कर रहे थे, तो इसलिए उधर का वाइब्रेशंस जो है वो वैसे वाला वाइब्रेशंस आएंगे. सो हियर कुरुक्षेत्र by default it actually induces the persons who are following dharma to win. तो संजय को धृतराष्ट्र ऐसे पूछने का कुछ मतलब नहीं है. इट इज लाइक हम एक रेस्टोरेंट में चले गए और फोन किया हमारा दोस्त और पूछा कि किधर हो, बोला कि रेस्टोरेंट में. तो तब वो पूछ रहा है रेस्टोरेंट में क्या कर रहे हो? रेस्टोरेंट में क्या करने के लिए आते हैं? खाने के लिए आते हैं. बट इट इज एज ऑब्वियस एज दैट. तो कुरुक्षेत्र में आए क्यों? लड़ाई करने के लिए ही. तो वो धृतराष्ट्र को ऑलरेडी पता है. बट स्टिल व्हाई इज धृतराष्ट्र आस्किंग लाइक दैट? व्हाट आर दे डूइंग करके? बिकॉज धृतराष्ट्र इज थिंकिंग दिस प्लेस actually is so dharmic, maybe this place has influenced the Kauravas, and whether the Kauravas would win or lose, who would be winning this war? So with this, Dhritarashtra is asking this kind of question. So if you see the psychology and the attitude of Dhritarashtra, it is completely thinking about how can I again regain the throne, either to myself or to my son. I or mine. Mine means my son, in that way. And if you see the Duryodhana's attitude, Duryodhana had 11 Akshahonis. That means massive. And Pandavas had 7. So it is almost like Duryodhana has 50% more than what Pandavas have. So according to the statistics and the military strength, one can, if one analyzes, Duryodhana's party should win. And he should be more confident also of his winning. But he was internally stricken with the disease of insecurity. Insecurity का जो disease है वो अंदर से उसको खा रहा है. And that is why he is filled with anxiety and fear. Though वो बोल रहा है मेरे पास भीष्म है, ये है, वो है करके, but अंदर से उसको डर है. Why he is actually afraid? Because he knows that the people who are there on my side, they are very righteous people, but they have come on this side to fight with me because of some circumstances. And in my party, all of us are not united just like how they are united on the Pandavas side. So he knows the strengths and the weaknesses. And his calculations are completely based on his resources. Whereas Pandavas, if you see, their strength is not on just the resources what they have, that is the military strength, but their greatest dependency and the greatest strength, what they actually understood is the strength of Krishna on their side and the strength of following dharma, irrespective of whatever the result may be. So if you see the leadership dimension of the Kauravas and the Pandavas, Kauravas' leadership is a single. That is, there is only one on the top, on the apex body, and he is the centralized decision maker, and everyone listens according to this one. And if this person makes even a small mistake, the whole thing collapses. Whereas the Pandavas, it is actually a shared leadership and the delegated authority. Shared leadership means there is a collective group of people who come together and take decisions. And this is a very common concept currently in the all corporates, where they say it as board of directors and executive board of directors, non-executive board of directors. And also, Srila Prabhupada has actually formed GBC, where a group of saintly personalities come together and lead the spiritual society. So that is called a shared leadership. The second dimension is the motivation. In the Kauravas, they have divided purposes. And there is no singular point of loyalty for Duryodhana. क्या divided purpose है? Karna, who actually proclaimed himself to be a great friend of Duryodhana, he said, as long as Bhishma stays on the war and he continues in the service of commander, I will not even fight. Is this a real sign of deep friendship where the ego has come in between the friendship, and that too at the time when the massive armies are fighting together? पूरा जीवन में बहुत बार लड़ाई हुआ है, बहुत बार ये हुआ है, वो प्लान हुआ है, सब किया है, और जब सब एकत्र हो गए और इस समय में जब फाइनल कंक्लूडिंग वॉर होना है, उस समय में करना बैक्स आउट. So that is how their team is. Whereas the Pandavas, they are single, one united team, one unified goal. The third dimension, that is focus. It's very clear, as we have discussed, that is Duryodhana is completely self-centered and exploitative in nature, whereas the Pandavas, they are God conscious and they are thinking about the welfare of all the citizens. And the last is the resources. There's an overwhelming majority, that is 11 divisions. And the Pandavas, they have 7 divisions. So from this we can understand, sometimes even though we may have less resources, but a right model in our life to guide in our journey, that would bring success. Instead of having more resources, but with all kinds of fallacies as what we discussed on the Kauravas side, it would end at the step of failure. And the second, the D stands for the doubts. And now the doubts actually means the illusion. And now we are entering into the O. O means omens or signs, signs of victory. जब दोनों पार्टीज ने युद्ध आरंभ करने के पहले जब शंख बजाए, the Kauravas, when they blew their conch shells, not even the pigeons flew. But whereas when Krishna and the Pandavas, when they blew their divine conch shells, Really, the opposing army के हृदय कांपने लगा. It really gave a shatter in the hearts of the enemies of the Pandavas. So the faith dictates fearlessness, whereas the Arjuna actually chose the Krishna, and he has immense faith in the shelter of Krishna. Because of that faith, even though his numbers were less, that is, the resources were less, but still he was fearless. Because he knows that if Lord is on my side, victory is assured. And the third one is the U. So the Lord takes the reins. U stands for uncertainty. जैसे ही अभी observing the armies हो गया, Pandavas have evaluated their strengths, Kauravas have evaluated their strengths, and now Arjuna tells, "Oh my dear Lord Krishna, please take my chariot into the mid of the armies. So let me see who all has come to fight." So Krishna enters the arena. He takes the reins and rides the chariot and takes Arjuna into the middle of the battlefield. If you see this one picture, there's so many lessons which we can learn. On an absolute level, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Arjuna is the a living entity. And Krishna is more powerful in terms of all aspects compared to Arjuna. But because of the deep friendship between Krishna and Arjuna, Arjuna was sitting on the back of the chariot and Krishna is acting like the driver. जैसे हमारा कार की गाड़ी होती है ना, मर्सिडीज बेंज. तो मर्सिडीज बेंज में पीछे कौन बैठते हैं? मालिक बैठते हैं. आगे कौन बैठते हैं? नौकर बैठते हैं. Here, Krishna, without any hesitation, he actually took the position of the driver. And he made Arjuna as the hero of Kurukshetra. Though he has all complete abilities to make Krishna, to annihilate the whole army. अगर कृष्णा का strength देखेंगे, every time Jarasandha used to bring 17 Akshahoni Senas to fight against Krishna. So Krishna with little army, Krishna and Balaram and little army comes out of the gates of Mathura and destroys the massive army of Jarasandha. और इधर 7 + 11 दोनों मिलाएंगे तो 18 है. उस समय में पूरा 17-18 अक्षौहिणी का जरासंध सेना को आराम से कृष्ण मिठा देते थे. And now, such kind of powerful personality, now he is taking the seat of inactive person. तो ये बहुत मुश्किल है. अगर एक आदमी को 10 चीज संभालने का क्षमता है और उनको बोलेंगे आप कुछ मत करो, आप खाली बैठो. So that is something a great act where it is not easy to perform. So Krishna is also teaching another lesson, that is how to become malleable and change one's roles according to the situation. So Krishna is not seeing in the friendship of both of them, he is not seeing who is greater. He is actually seeing how well I can actually help my friend. And also he is seeing why I am not actually fighting, whereas I have greater strength, I should fight and I should get the success. Krishna is not thinking like that. He is thinking, even if I don't play a major role, but if my purpose of the descent, Krishna Bhagavan actually इधर आया किसके लिए? धर्म को स्थापन करने के लिए. If the purpose is being met even through someone, I am okay with it. I don't really mind. I am not a credit grabber. I am more focused on achieving the purpose. So they are purpose driven people. They are not credit driven people. आजकल अगर कोई 99 स्कोर करके इंडियन क्रिकेट में 100 मारने के लिए सोचेंगे, वो उस अपना 100 के लिए पूरा टीम को कुछ भी एक्चुअली many dot balls he can actually make and he can delay the score of the whole Indian team. So that kind of leadership actually dictates that they are more credit driven than the purpose driven. So here Krishna is teaching so many lessons by just this one act. And when Arjuna enters, this is the period of uncertainty. He sees the great generals of the army on the Kaurava side, especially Bhishma, Drona, and Kripacharya, who are their gurus and the fatherly personalities. तो जैसे ही उनको देखते हैं, वो सोचते हैं कि why am I actually killing my Gurujan? Why am I fighting against my elders like this? I don't need any kingdom. So he is in a state of paralysis. Paralysis physical में नहीं, mental में भी है. That is a state of crisis. That is what we are discussing today. Crisis management. Now, the perception trap. So many a times, what our eyes see, we believe. But many a times, it may be wrong. Even in scientific community भी अगर देखेंगे, कितने लोग को इलेक्ट्रॉन दिखता है आपने नेकड आई से? दिखता नहीं है, लेकिन फिर भी हम उसको टीचर के माध्यम से सुनते हैं, एक्सपेरिमेंट के माध्यम से महसूस करते हैं, and then we actually see the presence of electron, at least in the elementary level. ये इलेक्ट्रॉन पार्टिकल है करके हम समझते हैं. बाद में तो क्वांटम फिजिक्स में बोलते हैं कि ऐसे पार्टिकल भी नहीं है करके, वो अलग चीज है. So we believe more through hearing, through ears we see. So the trap is we just believe the things only by seeing. Relying solely on visual perception breeds illusion and bodily identification. Viewing the world purely through perception leads to fanaticism, division, and seeing others merely as friends or enemies. This is what has happened with Arjuna when he was seeing his elderly personalities. And what is the cure? One needs to gain knowledge, that is through ears. Just like how we gain knowledge and then we see an electron, similarly, one needs to see the things not just through their mundane eyes, but through the knowledge. So the true vision requires receiving spiritual knowledge through hearing. Throughout the Gita, Krishna cures Arjuna's visually induced illusion by pouring wisdom into his ears. So that is the wisdom of Bhagwad Gita. So D stands for the doubt, that is the illusion. O stands for the ominous, that is the signs of victory. U stands for the uncertainty. The B stands for the bewilderment. Now, Arjuna is seeing at the opposing army and he is completely confused. And क्यों confused है? क्योंकि उनको सोच रहे हैं कि इनको कैसे मारूं. But the root cause of the bewilderment, confusion is because one is confused with their identity. ये हमारे जीवन में भी होता है ना कि for example a person has multiple identities. When he goes to office, he carries the identity of the employee of a organization. And when he comes home, he carries the identity of the husband of someone, and then the father of one or two, and again the son of someone. So every identity carries different duties. तो कभी कभी बोलते हैं कि माता पिता बोलते हैं बेटा थोड़ा आके मेरे साथ रहो, और बच्चे बोलते हैं और पत्नी बोलती है क्या जी आप मेरे साथ आके रहिए. So both are the duties, but when one does not know what is their true identity, they would be always drawn between from one end to the another end, and they keep facing the state of confusions whenever they want to make choices. या पत्नी बोल रही है चलिए जी थोड़ा आज पार्क चलते हैं, लेकिन ऑफिस का मैनेजर बोलता है कि नहीं 10 बजे तक इधर ही रुकना है. फिर से there is confusion. So, in order to remove all these things, one needs to identify one's true identity. So, that is how we can actually understand from the teachings of Lord Krishna in the second chapter onwards. That is, one needs to identify oneself with the eternal soul instead of the temporal material body. And we all are spirit souls. We have forgotten our spiritual identity and have taken up a material identity as the father of someone, or the student of a particular college, or I take the form of a human in this birth. In the next life, I can take the body of a cow, or a pigeon, or a peacock, so on. This forms the last part of our section. That is the turning point. So now, if you see, Arjuna is not just a person who is just skillful but not learned. कुछ लोग होते हैं, they are very, very skillful in writing beautiful codes, software के algos, codes, programming करते हैं, but उनको common sense नहीं रहता ज़्यादा. Common sense becomes uncommon. और कुछ लोग का मैनेजमेंट एबिलिटीज बहुत ज्यादा रहता है, बट दे आर नॉट वेरी गुड इन राइटिंग आर ग्रास्पिंग टेक्निकल थिंग्स. बट अर्जुना इज वेरी गुड इन अंडरस्टैंडिंग द शास्त्रास, assimilate it and apply it according to the particular situations. He has the information and he has the wisdom to apply that information in a particular situation. That actually shows the maturity of Arjuna. Maturity is the combination of the application of the information according to time, place, and circumstance. That determines the maturity of a person. And here, Arjuna has read different shastras like Artha Shastras, Dharma Shastras, many. Now, he is listing down 5 arguments why it is logical that I don't fight. The first thing is, it is said one needs to be compassionate. Compassionate मतलब दया हृदय होना चाहिए. So it is very cruel and heartless to kill my own people in the war. So that is the first reason which he mentions. And the second, he says, even after killing my family members in this war, and I get the whole kingdom back, at the end, I will be there without my family members. There is kingdom, but I don't have my near and dear ones to enjoy with the kingdom. So what is the use of such kind of victory? So very logical, right? So ऐसा enjoyment क्यों चाहिए? And then the third one is, even if I do this in this way, by killing my elders and the Gurujan, I am actually committing a great sin. How can I escape from such kind of great sin? Ultimately, that reaction of that bad activity would come upon me, and I have to face that consequence. So that's the third reason. The fourth is the destruction of traditions. So when mass level में जब लोग मर जाते हैं ना, so the old people, they don't find the able sons to take care of. The chaste women will not find their suitable husbands to protect them. तो तब क्या होगा, अगर वुमेन को सही से प्रोटेक्ट नहीं कर पाते हैं, सो देर वुड बी क्रॉस मिक्सिंग, मिक्सड कल्चर जो है वो ज्यादा फैल जाता है, फ्री मिक्सिंग हो जाता है. तो फ्री मिक्सिंग अगर हो गए तो देन द progeny will not be as desired. So this is a deeper spiritual concept which we'll learn at a later stage, how both of are actually are related. But Arjuna is aware of all these consequences. And the elderly people को act of gratitude में जो rituals करते हैं, like पितृ पक्ष में पितृयज्ञ करते हैं, पितृदान देते हैं, so वो ceremonies सारे जो है वो नहीं कर पाएंगे. So the kind of gratitude what they express towards the elderly people, that also is not possible. So in one sense, the rituals are being destroyed and the women are not being able to get a proper shelter. And in future generations, the progeny that will not be a dharmic friendly. So he is actually putting up all these arguments. And in the final, he says, my heart is palpitating, my tongue is dry, his face became pale, and is completely paralyzed. That is how Arjuna leaves hopeless, almost about to drop his Gandiva from his hand, where at some point of time he has taken a vow that he will never drop his Gandiva. Indeed, if someone tells to leave or to shed away the Gandiva from the hand of Arjuna, I will take away the head of the person. So that is the pratigya of Arjuna. तो वैसे वॉरियर जो है उनके हाथ से गांडीवा नीचे गिर रहा है, जिनका गांडीवा का जो स्ट्रिंग है उसका पीछे निकाल के when he releases the bow twigs sound सुन के it creates fear in the hearts of the enemies, that Arjun's Gandiva is now being loosened from the hands of his. So this is the crisis what Arjuna is being into. In this way, every one of us can land up in this kind of crisis at any point of time in their life. So that's how Gita actually gives us a platform how to deal with such kind of crisis in their life. Hare Krishna. So if there are any questions, comments? Thank you, everyone. If there are no questions, then we'll continue our sessions. Thank you for your enthusiastic participation. I guess there is one thing which is there in the chat. Okay. Yes, there's nothing. Thank you, everyone. So we'll meet next time, the same day, same time, 7 to 8 p.m. Hare Krishna.